Heyo, this is YetiWhiskers, and welcome back to episode 3 of Q&A with Yeti as we play through the Call of Duty Modern Warfare campaign on Veterans. So we're just trying to unlock the tea time and out of the fire trophies. And as we're doing so, just answering some questions and a list I found, and then any questions that you guys ask as well. So please, down below, leave some questions for me. I'm happy to answer any of the questions that you have. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this series as well, you know, a little bit different. I know that I am. It kind of gets me to think a little bit differently, and a little bit of editing and whatnot challenges. These are a little bit longer videos, so it's kind of fun. Okay, so last time we left off on the 200 questions to get to know someone. We did number 20, which is what kind of art do you enjoy the most? So today's first question is what takes up too much of your time? I don't know that I like this question, and I don't know that I have an answer for this question. I feel like I'm...
Quite a bit, sir.
I don't know if there's one thing I could say takes up too much of my time. Maybe cleaning. Cleaning with the kids. Mrs. Yeti does way more cleaning than I do, so it's hard for me to complain about this. But, like, our kids, they're still pretty young. They help a little bit where they can as far as cleaning goes, but they're really good at making messes. So, cleaning kind of stinks. Dishes. Dishes. I say dishes. Actually, take it back. I say dishes. And, because during this whole COVID-19 quarantine, self-isolation thing, we have been cooking at home more than we normally do. So many dishes. And it's not like they take a ton of time when you're doing them, but I just feel like we've had to do them a lot recently. So, dishes is it. That's my answer. Number 22. What do you wish you knew more about? I would say something I wish I knew more about is I'm kind of fascinated with the 1920s era gangsters and like the mob and mafia and the startup of organized crime in that time. I've watched tons and tons of documentaries and miniseries and whatnot on the mob and the mafia. It's something that's super intriguing to me. So I wish I knew a little bit more about the 1920s era of that. There's some really interesting characters like bank robberies and like Tommy guns and all that kind of stuff is very intriguing for me. And there's some interesting movies that have been put out about that time, but I'd like to know some of the more factual stuff. And I know it's not super easy to find all that, but, you know, Pretty Boy Floyd and all those kinds of guys. Bonnie and Clyde. There's some really cool examples. For you could, you know, it's just interesting and intriguing for me. So I would say I wish I knew more about that time period and the gangsters of that period.
And the Russian army is still here.
What is the best way to start the day? Oh, man. For me, the best way to start the day is the later the better. I used to sleep in quite a bit, you know, till noon sometimes, but that is definitely not the case now. Our kids wake up around 6:45, 7 o'clock in the morning, so we're up. They wake us up about then to get them kind of started, and then after that I try and lay back down for a little while if I can. So yeah, best way to start the day for me is, I don't know, I like to wake up, like ideally I'd like to wake up, eat real quick, shower, get ready for work and all that fun stuff. So I don't know that I have like a set routine or anything like that, but the later in the day I can push it, the better for me. Hopefully, ideally, after 9 a.m. I could, you know, slowly wake up until 9 and then get out of bed at 9 and whatnot, but that doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. What mystery do you wish you knew the answer to? Ooh, intriguing. Area 51, I would want to know what is actually in there. I'm not sure about the aliens and all that kind of stuff. There's lots of conspiracy theories and whatnot, but man, it's kind of interesting to know what's actually in Area 51. It's just a military base, right? I don't know. It'd be interesting. Interesting to find out what that actually is and what they're hiding in there in quotes. I don't know. I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy, so I don't know if there's actually anything, you know, super spooky or weird in there, but at least then you know, right? How different was your life 1 year ago? Not a lot different, actually. So my kids were a year younger. So was I. Let's see, a year ago, I was pretty much, I guess instead of just starting to make videos, I was wrapping up making videos. I wasn't making them anymore. What else? I was working a couple days a week in the office. I'm not doing that anymore. But other than that, my life is pretty much the same. Oh, except I do have a truck. That's pretty cool. We talked about that in episode 1. Other than that, pretty much the same old thing, same house. same hobbies, which is fine. I'm happy with what I've got. Can't complain too much.
Barkov show up?
Almost never. He hides.
26. What's the best single day on the calendar?
Men on the work line, women to the trucks.
Man.
This is where we
Best single day on the calendar, probably, let's be honest, Christmas. Like, it's fun with the kids. We've got some traditions that we've started with our in our immediate family. Oh, there's death number 1, by the way. We've got some traditions that we started here with our immediate family, like my wife and kids, and it's been pretty fun. We used to travel to either my parents or Mrs. Yeti's parents in alternate years. One year we'd go to my parents for Thanksgiving and then her parents for Christmas, and then the next year would flop, so her parents for Thanksgiving and mine for Christmas. But we've decided that we want to start our own traditions for Christmas. So we stay home for Christmas and then we travel after. And it's been great. We've got our own traditions going. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, the kids can kind of enjoy the gifts they've received, and we can kind of enjoy our family and each other. And then we go and hang out with cousins and grandmas and grandpas and do all that fun family stuff too. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. But biggest single day on the calendar, probably Christmas for us. What are some things you've had to unlearn?
Good.
So unlearned, probably, I don't know, I've come to distrust very much things that I see on social media and articles. I just like headlines for articles and things like that. I don't know that necessarily that's unlearn, but that's something that I've learned to like. Before I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Well, I kind of jump on the bandwagon or the train that's moving along this very untrue and unwise path. And something I've become more critical of as I've gotten older is, social media, and I understand more now that not everyone that I know is well informed about the things they're discussing on social media, or, not all of the news sites are unbiased. In fact, very few news sites, stations, and things are unbiased. So you kind of have to take things with a grain of salt and do a little bit of your own research, which makes it hard because there is that bias. No matter who is writing it, they have some sort of bias, and some people are better at hiding it than others. So that's kind of a critical and cynical view, but yeah, I would say that taking information with a grain of salt for sure. What's your favorite genre of book or movie? So I like, I'm sure I'm playing Call of Duty, this is going to come as a shock. I really like spy action thriller novels. So I've read through all of Tom Clancy. There's a Mitch Rapp series I really like. It's fantastic. Lee Child, he writes Jack Reacher. Jack Reacher's really great. Read through most of those books. I think I've got all of the Mitch Rapp and all of the Jack Reacher books done. For those of you who don't know, I used to live about an hour drive away from my work until we moved a few years ago. And so instead of listening to music on the drive, like the radio gets old real fast, I started listening to audiobooks. So that's where I listen to most of, I really listen to them. And I did most of that on Audible. So not sponsored, just, I don't have a subscription anymore, but because I don't drive nearly as often. But I listened to a bunch of spy novels and that type of thing while I was driving to and from work. So I get a couple hours in every day, which was great. Let's see, next question. What's the farthest you've ever been from home? So when I was, just after I graduated high school, well, maybe not just after, but the Christmas after I graduated high school, my grandparents took all of us on a Caribbean cruise. That's probably like miles-wise the furthest that I've ever been. We did a bunch of the islands there, Puerto Rico, maybe? I can't remember, it's been a while. We did a bunch of the islands there in the Caribbean. That's probably the furthest that I have been from home. Recently, Mrs. Yeti and I, a few years back, and our oldest daughter went on a Disney cruise to the Caribbean with Mrs. Yeti's parents. They bought us all a cruise and we all went, which was great. It was the same cruise in the Caribbean, but we just hit a few different islands and stops. So Disney has their own like island in the Caribbean, so obviously the first time I went, it wasn't a Disney cruise. We didn't go to that island, but I would say that's probably the furthest I've been
But
from
only if we
home.
help each other. It is a terrorist.
What TV or YouTube channel doesn't it exist but really should? I don't know. I'm not a huge TV guy.
And you will be rewarded.
This way.
Trying to think. Yeah, I don't know if I could answer this, honestly. Kind of lame answer, but doesn't exist but really should.
What can we do?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that, and I mean, we could sit here and just, like, listen to me hum and hop. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? What's a YouTube channel or TV station that it doesn't exist but really should? Throw that down in the comments. You guys help me out on this one. 31. Where is the most interesting place you've been?
Barkov is sending in helicopter.
Most interesting.
Forces from the base will come running.
I hate to keep coming back to this because we've talked about this a bunch of times, but probably Alaska. There were some really cool. So there was one of the stops we made was in this like remote area that was untouched. A bunch of the natives had purchased, or maybe not purchased, but they have a bunch of land there, and it's like you can't develop there, and it's very restricted and limited on how many people can come and visit and how many cruise ships can stop there. And for me, that was very interesting to just kind of see the land the way that it was before, you know, it was really taken over. And so they've done a lot of things to keep it preserved and to keep the wildlife there. There's lots of bears there and lots of, you know, we saw whales. We saw some humpback whales while we were in that area. I would say that's probably the most interesting place that I have ever been. Keep going back to Alaska, but that's like my favorite place on Earth, so sorry if it starts to get old. Number 32. What fad or trend do you hope comes back? Bum bum bum. I think it would be funny if mullets came back. I don't know if I'd want them to. I never would wear one, but you know, let's throw out some mullets. Why not? Some mullets. You also think of some trend like bell bottoms. That was my dad. My dad wore those in high school, I think. Bell bottoms would be pretty funny. Something that actually comes back, I don't know. Pogs were actually, okay, take that back. Pogs. Pogs were really cool when I was a kid. How do you guys remember Pogs? They're these like little circle things made of like a cardboard type material. And you had like a slammer that was like a little bit heavier piece of plastic, or sometimes you can get them in metal. And you'd stack up your Pogs, your little circular discs, and then you'd use your slammer and knock them over, and if you flipped them over, you got to keep them. That was pretty cool. I had a Pog maker when I was a kid, so you could get like a piece of paper, stick it in this little Pog maker, and you can make your own Pogs. So I would say Pogs would be pretty cool. Blast from my past.
Charge set. This will make one hell of a distraction.
Let's see. Next question. What city would you most like to live in? The city I would most like to live in would probably be... Well, there's a city that's near us. I'm not going to say any names or anything like that, but realistically, like, where I would like to live is in this city that's, like, just up a canyon from where we live. We live on a near a mountain range. And so, we went recently on a hike, the Cubs and I, and Mrs. Yeti, went on a hike recently to, there's a ski resort. So we went up there and just kind of hung around, and then near there's a hike. So on the way there, we found this really awesome community that had gorgeous views, lots of rolling hills and mountains, and it was really, really beautiful. And it's probably like 20 minutes from my work, which is about what I live now, the distance-wise, the drive-wise. So realistically, that's probably where we would like to live, Mrs. Yeti and I end up. You know, Dream World, obviously. You guys know what I want to go, right? Alaska, of course. But for our family and stuff, I don't know that that's the best place. Just because it'd be so far from my parents, Mrs. Yeti's parents, and whatnot. But maybe once the kids are a little older, we get a little older, maybe Alaska one day. But realistically, this little community that we found.
We're clear. It's time.
When was the last time you climbed a tree just for fun? Actually, no. I was going to say just recently, but that's not true. It's probably been 15 years since I climbed a tree just for fun. Recently,
Well done.
the Yeti Cubs, the oldest one, got a kite stuck in one of the trees in our front yard. So I had to climb the tree a little bit to get her kite unstuck. That was like a month or two ago, but before that, just for fun, it's been years and years and years. I used to do it all the time. I remember one time when I was a kid, I had a Game Boy, one of the old Game Boys. We're talking like the big brick one. And I was playing it, we were staying at my grandparents' house, my mom's parents. And, because my parents were out on vacation or whatever. They left us kids with my grandparents. Super smart idea, by the way. Vacations are a lot more enjoyable for us if the kids aren't around. That being said, Disneyland, I would never go without my kids. But, you know, some of the other vacations, not as fun for them. And it's nice to have a break from the kids. They're great, but it's nice to have a break. So, anyway, yeah, my parents left us with my grandparents. I was playing my Game Boy, and I climbed up into their apple tree. And I was playing the Game Boy, and my grandma, she was teasing me and just decided to spray me with a hose. Got me all soaked while I was up in the tree. So that's one of my memories from climbing a tree. Let's see. What do you consider to be your best friend? Best find! Well, that's different than best friend. I was like, why would you... What? Okay. What do you consider to be your best find? Oh, recently, something that we found is a restaurant near us. It's called... it's a chicken place. I'm not going to say names, but... It's a chicken place, and it's kind of like a Chick-fil-A, KFC kind of crossover. It's a local restaurant, and I was just browsing on, I want to say maybe Facebook, which I no longer have on my phone, but I was browsing it, and I saw this thing pop up, and they had these little spicy mini chicken bites. They're kind of like nuggets. They look phenomenal. So, Mrs. Yeti and I have been there twice since, and oh my goodness, that's the good stuff. Good stuff. They've got really good chicken, and they've got mac and cheese and mashed potatoes and gravy and cornbread. Oh, so good. So that's probably my best recent find. Really a big fan of that. Mrs. Yeti is too. They also have tons and tons of sauce, which is a big thing for Mrs. Yeti. So they've got like ranches, and they've got different like wing sauces, barbecue sauces, a fry sauce, just really good stuff. What is special about the place you grew up? So where I grew up, they had this man-made waterfall, kind of like there's a river, and there's a man-made waterfall there, and they call it the Green Belt. And right around there is like a bunch of really cool stuff, some statues, historical statues. Really cool place to go for like a run or a walk. There's lots of ducks that are there, and people like to go and feed. So that's pretty cool. It's also incredibly windy in my hometown. There's not a lot of mountains and stuff, and so at least not right next to them. So it gets really windy there, pretty much constantly. I grew up playing baseball. We talked about that. I can't remember if it was last episode or the one before. And so you would get used to like hitting a pop, like somebody hit a fly ball. If you're in the outfield, you just get used to reading the wind and knew if you thought it was coming down here, you actually need to go like 40 or 50 feet to the left, or you know, whatever way the wind was blowing. So that kind of played a huge factor in sports. It was kind of fun. Where we live now gets fairly windy, but it's not consistently windy like it was back home. Like I remember stories of like 90-mile-an-hour winds, people's fences falling over, trampolines jumping, getting picked up and carried. Just crazy stuff. But anyway, this is the end of the mission. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.
Now let's take Barkov's airbase, so their deaths are not in vain.
We're in for a hell of a fight.
So are they. Hadir has a plan.